everyone. This is a different kind of video. It's not really a review, it's not really a Gundam history or anything like that. This is kind of a primer for those of you interested in Super Robot Wars 30. For those who don't know, Super Robot Wars 30 will be the newest entry in the Super Robot Wars franchise, which has been going on for 30 years, thus the 30. In addition to that, the game will have a US release, which is kind of a huge shock, because usually they don't. Outside of a few original generation games, no Super Robot Wars game has made it to the US. Thus, this game is very unique in the sense that it's coming out here, and that it's an anniversary title. There are 22 series connected to this game, and we're going to cover the first half in this video, and the second half in the next video. So if you have any curiosity about any of these series, now's your time to learn what all these various names mean, which ones you'd like to watch, and what units you may be interested in using once the game comes out. So without any further ado, let's get started. Due to the fact that I am a very Gundam-heavy channel, we'll begin with the Gundam universe. There are 7 different Gundam titles involved in this new game, meaning about a third of all titles in this game are Mobile Suit Gundam related. But don't get too excited, the lineup isn't as good as you might want it to be. Some of the titles are mecha-only titles, and some of the titles actually will have storyline and characters. We'll go through the story and character titles first. We begin with Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. This is the second in the Mobile Suit Gundam TV series franchise. This is a follow-up to the original Mobile Suit Gundam storyline, taking place years later, following our protagonist Kamille Bidan as he steals the Gundam Mark.II and joins the AUG, the Anti-Earth Union Group. This organization is battling against the Titans, which is the militaristic side of the Earth Federation, who are strong-arming the colonies and want to eliminate anyone who would resist against the Federation. Characters from the original series and brand new characters join forces in order to battle the Titans and bring peace to the Earth sphere. The next series to get a story segment is Char's Counterattack. In this storyline, Amuro, the protagonist of the original Gundam series, battles against Char Aznable, one of his antagonists from that original series, who's had quite the character journey since 0079. This culminates with the two of them battling in their most advanced mobile suits they have available, and a race to save Earth from a giant meteor that could potentially function as an extinction-level event. Chronologically, the next story we have is a narrative. This story is a crappy follow-up to a crappy TV series called Gundam Unicorn. It features a Mary Sue piloting a super robot, and a lot of its plot makes zero sense. Yay! The good news is, the unit you'll be using will probably be overpowered. So, that. Finally, in terms of the TV series that we get, Mobile Suit Victory Gundam. This is the 4th TV series in the Gundam franchise, and does a huge time jump, bringing us to the year UC 153. For those of you who have seen Gundam Hathaway, this is like 50 years later. That's how far into the future of Gundam this story takes place. It is the furthest into the future in terms of visual media, however there are some mangas that go past this. Whether or not they're canon remains to be seen. The story follows Uso, a young boy who gets a hold of the Victory Gundam. He battles with League Militaire against the evil Zanskare Empire, who has plans of conquering the entire Earth sphere, because that's what empires do. The Victory itself is actually a cool unit. It has various parts that can connect onto it, making it more powerful. It has an upgraded version called the Victory-II, or V2, and it even has a core fighter unit similar to that of the original Gundam. So it'll be interesting to see how Victory Gundam plays into everything else, as the darker tones of Char's Counterattack and Zeta Gundam will definitely be emphasized by the characters from Victory Gundam. Although the timeline differences might make things a bit more confusing. However, considering the fact that previous games have had alternate dimensions, time travel, and fudged timelines completely so characters are just hanging out even though there's no reason they should be fighting in the same war. Beyond the series that we actually have story and characters from, we have 3 additional series that will be given just for extra units. The first is Mobile Suit Gundam. This likely means the White Base will be a usable ship early on. We may potentially have access to the original Gundam, or at the very least we'll be fighting various Zeon suits. Then we have Z-MSV, or Zeta Mobile Suit Variations. The Mobile Suit Variations is a design series which allows various artists and mechanical designers an opportunity to create extra units for the franchise. Stuff that is generally considered canon even if it doesn't appear in the TV series. Z-MSV, of course, is the Mobile Suit Variations for Zeta Gundam. It's mostly made up of AU units to expand their forces during the Grips War and the Neo-Zeon conflict. But for the most part, what we get are prototypes and test models, especially variations of the Zeta Gundam and its prototypes that led to its development. It's designed more for filling in some gaps and less so for filling in the roster. Odds are units from this will be either secondary units for lesser characters on your team, or potentially units that can be acquired somehow as an upgrade for certain characters. Finally, we have M-MSV, or Missing Mobile Suit Variations. This design series was created in the early 90s, and essentially fills in the gaps from the original Gundam all the way up through Char's counterattack. Expect to see many units from this series making appearances. Now, here's the strange part about this. While many of the designs are full armor designs or prototype designs, they also feature Gundam G04, Gundam G05, the Mudrock Gundam, and 7th Gundam. For those who don't know, these are 4 additional units added to the RX-78 series. And all 4 of these units have appeared in various video games. Not only that, but it also features the G-line, and these were essentially a built but never mass-produced version of a mass-produced Gundam. Which brings up a lot of questions, because if we're only getting the machines from this line and none of the characters that go along with them, what's the point? I'd rather have Luce and Ford in the G04 and G05. I'd rather have Ager show up in the Mudrock. I'd rather have the characters from Battle Record 81 show up in the G-line and 7th Gundam. It's interesting to see how these will play out and who will be able to use them, because it feels like a massive waste to introduce these really amazing units and then have them just kind of not be used because we don't have the proper pilots, or the awkwardness of throwing Amuro in a Mudrock, or Kamille in the 7th Gundam full armor. It just doesn't feel right. So I do have worries about how both MSV series will be utilized in this game. Leaving the Gundam universe, we still have a few other mainstays from the Super Robot Wars franchise. First is Getter Robo. Getter Robo has been around since the first game, just like Mobile Suit Gundam, and in Super Robot Wars 30, we're getting Getter Robo Armageddon for the 800th time in this franchise. It's kind of a bummer that we are not getting more Getter Robo than this, because it feels like Getter Robo gets the short end of the stick, due to the fact that they stick with one OVA series and the handful of units that appear in it. For those who don't know anything about Getter Robo, it is the story of 3 pilots who use smaller machines that then combine into a bigger robot, and depending which pilot takes the lead position, the robot will change. The Getter Robo, and in this case the Shin Getter, which is what you'll probably be using in this game, is one of the best units primarily because it can swap modes for different situations, whether you're battling in water, battling in space, battling in the sky, battling on the ground. And each of the pilots provides their own secondary skills to help boost your unit up and make combat that much easier. I really do like the characters from Getter Robo, and I really wish they'd thrown more Getter Robo in this game. The third of the original 3 series, of course, is Mazinger Z, and this time we're getting 2 Mazinger-related series. We are getting Mazinger Z Infinity. This was a 2017 movie follow-up to the original TV series and its sequel series Great Mazinger, and it continues the story of the characters 10 years after the events of those anime series. For those who don't know, Mazinger Z is the story of Koji Kabuto and his giant robot, the Mazinger Z. He flies the Pilder, which is a little hover bike kind of thing, into the head, takes control of the unit, and battles against Dr. Hell. As the series continues, he gets various companions, helping him out with their other robots, and in Great Mazinger, we are introduced to Tetsuya, who pilots the Great Mazinger, and we expand the character roster a little bit more as they battle against bigger and badder monsters. I'm not going to spoil Infinity, but it is a movie that really pushes our characters to the limits, touches into things like alternate dimensions and timelines, and generally is an exciting, fun adventure. It'll be interesting to see how much of this story gets put into the game, and how much of it is Koji and friends kicking ass in giant robots. In addition to that, we get Mazinkaiser Infinitism. Infinitism? What is that word? Anyhow, I did some research on this because I'd never heard of it before, and as far as I can tell, it is a toy and model kit line of new alternate designs for the Mazinkaiser and some of the later units that appeared in the Mazinger franchise. Grendizer also appears in here, which would be nice to have Grendizer show up and assist the team once again. However, for the time being, we can only expect this to be upgrades for Koji, Tetsuya, and various other members of the Mazinger team, because this is only mechanical units, so it is likely only upgrades. But it'll be cool to see some new units I've never seen before, as I have never collected any of these toys. Finally, at least for this episode, we have Chodinji Robo Combattler V! Yes! A series that was introduced into the games with Super Robot Wars 3 for the Super Famicom, the game where most of my music I use on this channel comes from. Combattler V is the first part in what is generally referred to as the Robot Romance Trilogy. These were 3 Combiner Robot series created by the same staff in the mid-70s. Combattler V features a group of 5 teenagers with attitude, piloting 5 small robots that really don't do much, but when they combine into Combattler V, they kick massive amounts of butt against alien invaders and their giant monsters. It might sound really, cliche and simplistic by today's standards, but at the time it really helped set the rules for how Combiner Robot series work. Overall, the series itself hasn't aged great, but the characters are likable and the machine is really cool, and it gets upgrades every once in a while, aka new toys. It's generally a cool giant robot that's been around for a very long time in the Super Robot Wars franchise. However, the 2 companion series, Voltes 5 and Tosho Daimos, were not announced. I get the feeling one or both will be DLC, but who knows at this point. Overall, these 11 here are pretty good. These are kind of mainstays you would expect. While the Gundam list could have been better, we generally have a strong lineup, giving us some pretty good Getter and Mazinger units in addition to Combattler V and a handful of popular Gundam characters. The good news is we still got 11 more series to go through. This includes units from Brave series, some Clamp-created units, and a handful of odder choices that will really make this an interesting game if done right. So tune in for part 2 coming next week, and until then, I'll see you at the tavern.